Hey everyone, if you are new to the channel, you are gonna love this. We talk about everything Bend and Central Oregon, from recreation to real estate. And if you've been following along for a while already, we're gonna throw some new info at you because this is the pros and cons of living in Bend 2024. Okay, now Bend in Central Oregon is an incredible place to live. It truly, truly is. But there are a few things that you need to know if you're gonna consider moving here. Okay, first up, pro number one, the recreation. Now this is easily the biggest and best and number one pro on the list. It's actually kind of a shame that we're giving you the spoilers right off the bat. You'd think that we'd wanna keep that for the end. Hey, who's writing these scripts, huh? Oh yeah, me. The outdoor recreation here is unmatched by anywhere in the country. We absolutely have the best of the best in almost every category there is. From camping, hiking, fishing, hunting, to rock climbing, water sports, mountain biking, road biking, skiing, all the winter sports, and even the obscure things like spelunking and geocaching and slacklining. And we have multiple options of all of these. I mean, there are 2 mountain resorts nearby, a half dozen rivers, too many lakes to count, and more than a few national forests. There are more options for outdoor recreational activities than one could reasonably get through in a lifetime. And these are all the things that you can do outside of town. There are plenty more things that you can do inside of town that we'll probably get to later on. The first con on our list though, wildfires. Now sadly, because we are on the border of kind of the mountains and the national forest and on the desert, where there's not a lot of, precipitation, we are susceptible to wildfires. Now, it's usually not the fires themselves that kind of cause problems. Like in town, it's really the smoke. Yeah, the smoke is really the pain in the ass. It sucks. But if you were to ask, how bad is it? Gosh, it really depends. 2020 was the worst year on record, by a mile. There were 10 days in a row of extremely hazardous air quality. I mean, you couldn't look out your front window and see the street from your house. It was bad. And I mean, in Bend, in most cases, that's only like 20 feet from your house to the street. In fact, the AQI, which is the air quality index, is actually something that you have to kind of check every day in the summer. Kind of like it goes along with the weather report. Like, oh, what's the weather gonna be today? Oh, I don't know, but check the AQI, right? The thing about it is like, it didn't always used to be like this. Shannon grew up here, and I've been here for like over 20 years, and I don't really remember it being like this either. So when the Bulletin, which is a local newspaper here, released an article back in 2023 where they actually dug back into the archives, did the research, because I'm not gonna do it, and they actually found out that memory does serve, and we didn't used to have the amount of smoke that we do today. Check out this chart. The crazy high smoke levels only go back a handful of years, and before that it wasn't bad at all. So hopefully we can go back to smoke-free summers here in the future, and maybe these past few years were just outliers. Pro, the size of our community. Now this, in my opinion, is an absolute pro. Bend is such a great size. It's got big city energy, yet a small town vibe. Now, there will be plenty of people who are normally the locals who might have a little chip on their shoulder about how much Bend has grown over the years. In fact, we get negative comments like this on our channel all the time. But just look, if you don't like it and you want to move, just call me. I'll sell your house for top dollar, promise. But for the rest of us, yeah, Bend is a great size. It's the best. It's just over 100,000 people now, and that means it's big enough to have a really great variety of options. We have just enough of everything, from shopping to dining to entertainment. We've got a bit of everything. I hear from clients sometimes when they're asking about the area, well, does it have a Target? Yeah, it's not that small. Sheesh. Yeah, we have a Target. My wife Shannon won't live anywhere without a Target. It's a prerequisite. It's mandatory. Target, Costco, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. We've got the staples and then some. So when like a popular business takes off nationally, you start seeing them all over the place, we usually get them here too. And maybe sometimes it takes a little bit. Key examples might be like K1 Speed or Crumble Cookie, or we just recently got an Anthropology, and we're on the map now. But even better than some of those big national places are really some of the awesome, cool local places. That's where the magic's at. And then the contrast to all of that is it's still just so small. People aren't so completely anonymous in just the vastness of an urban metropolis, you know? You have to say hi and smile. And you can't just walk by people and be a jerk, you know? Neighbors are neighborly and strangers are polite. You run into people you know at the store, or a local concert, or when you go out to eat, or when you go out on a trail ride or a hike. It's definitely a local community. All right, moving on. Cons. Next con is jobs and or careers. It's kind of a corresponding con here with to have a city that's a little on the smaller size. There's simply a lack of higher paying jobs and careers here in the area. Most of the jobs revolve around tourism and hospitality. I mean, lots of jobs. And it makes sense considering we are kind of a hospitality touristy area. I mean, we see over 20,000 people a day in the summer. Isn't that wild? It's a lot of people, just in Bend alone. But we do have a growing sector of tech jobs and small business startups. So it's not that there's no jobs, it's just that there's a pretty substantial difference between the limited number of higher paying jobs that actually pay what you would need to be able to afford to live here, and then all the rest of the jobs that don't quite pay enough. But on the flip side, Bend is actually one of the absolute top areas in the country for people who work remote. According to census estimates, Bend, Oregon has 12.1% of its workforce telecommuting, which is more than any other city in the country. Oh, so there you go. The largest job sector in Bend is remote workers. And that totally tracks with what we see daily. Because I mean, I bet probably 50% of the people that end up calling us and relocating here to Bend work remote. It's wild. But as you're kind of learning through this video, if you can live here in Bend, why not? It's great. Time out. Now we are just about halfway through this video, and if you are finding this video full of valuable information, then we would like to ask you to subscribe. We talk about everything here from recreation to real estate. Best neighborhoods in Bend? Check. Want to know about fly fishing? It's here. Want to know about hiking? It's here. Want to know where all the best lunch hotspots are at? Yep, we got that video too. Even the new developments coming to the area, we talk about it all. You'll know more about Bend than the locals do by the time you move here. So hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell notification, and we'll go ahead and move on with this video for you. Thanks. This one, the weather. The best way I can describe it is full of the best. We get the most incredible, full seasons here, like out of a textbook. Fall is beautiful, despite having mostly evergreen trees around. The deciduous trees here, like the aspens and the cottonwoods and the maples, turn incredible colors in the fall and just light up the town. It's cool. The summers are nothing but a string of beautiful blue sky days with not a cloud in sight. And the winters, when it does snow, is like a postcard out of a fairy tale. But I digress, none of that actually had to do with the weather. All right. Summers are warm and dry and in the mid 80s with, some occasional days, maybe a week or two in the 90s. Winters are really only in the 40s with some stretches sometimes where it can be below freezing for, multiple days on end, but that's pretty rare. And we get some snow, but it's kind of hard to explain. It's nothing to worry about. Like once every 7 to 10 years, we get hit really hard with snow. I mean, like feet. But it's really not a hassle because you just kind of stay home because there isn't a whole lot you can do when there's 2 feet of snow on the ground. It's kind of more fun than anything, really. But then most of the time when we do get snow, it's just a few inches here and there. Melts off pretty quick. It's not really that cold anyway. And it's just enough for a white Christmas, which is nice. Full disclosure, I bought a snowblower 3 years ago and I've used it maybe 3 times. It's just most of the time it doesn't snow enough to even warrant getting it out, because I can literally shovel my driveway in 10 minutes and it would take 10 minutes to dig the snowblower out of the back anyway. Now the fall can actually be rather warm and beautiful, or sometimes it can snow before Halloween. Kind of a crapshoot. Spring is like that too. Sometimes it can be warm and rainy. Sometimes it can be freezing miserable and rainy. But summer is always spectacular. If I had one bad thing to say about the weather in Bend, it's that spring could be a little shorter and summer could be a little longer. Also, it's really important to know that it's the desert here. I know, right? Kind of strange. It's a high desert. See, we're at about 3,000 feet of elevation. So We actually don't get that much rainfall, generally speaking. I think we get 11 inches a year, and we do get over 300 days of sunshine. So if you're coming from over the valley somewhere, that's totally a bonus. Next con, UGB/development. Okay, the next con is kind of interesting. Depending on who you are and where you come from, you might view this as a pro. But in my mind, simply based on the things that it's doing with affordability of housing here, I consider this a con. The state of Oregon passed a development law back 50 years ago that prohibits builders from building sprawling neighborhoods all across the area or all across the county. Homes and neighborhoods must be built within the urban growth boundary, which is basically, but not technically, the city limits. The city has to expand the urban growth boundary kind of when it gets full, and there should be room for development for approximately 20 years. Now, this is great in theory, but unfortunately, the state and the city haven't done a great job of expanding the city's UGB fast enough. Partially on purpose, but we've been faced with challenges in building homes and creating inventory as fast as people are coming in, which has led to housing scarcity, which has led to increased demand, which has caused prices to skyrocket. Now, there are plenty of other reasons associated with this affordability crisis, but one of the key initial reasons is this urban growth boundary. Again, great for reducing sprawl, bad for affordability. And furthermore, what is being forced upon Oregon cities now is more density. So we're going up with condos in, multi-housing, multi-unit buildings instead of out with land and suburbs. Which is interesting because a recent poll found that 79% of people prefer and want single-level detached housing kind of in a suburb versus only 8% that actually wanted that kind of mixed-use condo, retail, urban living environment. Psh, yeah. Next pro, amenities, or really just the river. Now here's a pro that has no equal in any community, in any part of the country, in my opinion. We've already talked about the plethora of outdoor recreational amenities outside of town. In some cases, in as little as 5 minutes outside of town. But what about recreational amenities right here in town? There are so many things to do here in town, and in truth, the reality is that our local Bend Parks and Recreation Department has no equal. It is simply incredible the amount of local recreation opportunities they can offer. But the more I think about this, the river is really the centerpiece of most of the in-town recreational amenities. In fact, I could have made the Deschutes River its own pro. I mean, it deserves it. It's responsible for so many of the amazing amenities here in town. From the incredible walking and hiking trails all throughout town that border the river, to the numerous parks and natural preserves that run alongside the river throughout this town, to the canals that are diverted off the river that provide water for farming, but also scenic waterways for walking trails as well. The river provides so many incredible scenic elements as well. Just go downtown to Drake Park or Mirror Pond. There are fishing opportunities almost anywhere you go. Yeah, you can just plop down to the river, throw in a line, and catch fish right in town. It's crazy. The Old Mill is an incredible outdoor shopping mall that sits right alongside the Deschutes River. And then across the street from that, across the river from that, is Ben's concert venue, the Hayden Amphitheater. And then there's the floating aspect. In the summer, you can cool down and take a nice float right through town, or paddleboard, or even surf the wave at the Whitewater Park. Yeah, Mount Bachelor might have the wintertime activities down, and all the national forests might be great in the summertime, but the Deschutes River is the crux of Bend's in-town amenities. It just wouldn't be Bend without the Deschutes. The next con is housing, and it's simply a con because it has become increasingly expensive, and for a number of reasons. The first, which we've already mentioned, is the UGB, and how it prohibits builders from being able to just kind of build anywhere they want. But there are also other considerations involved here. Since the crash of 2008, finding good trade workers like plumbers, framers, electricians, all that kind of stuff, has become very, very, very difficult. Everyone wants to go to college and get some fancy degree. All the while, there are some really great jobs in these fields that can pay extremely well. Another issue that we've talked about in previous videos is that Bend has been discovered. We get calls from people relocating to Bend from all over the country and all over the world. Switzerland, Germany, Sweden, Slovakia. It's insane. Okay, to be fair, most of them are US folks coming back to the States, but still, it's pretty fun. Most people are coming here from the major West Coast cities, right? So Seattle, Portland, the Bay Area, down into Southern California. That's the majority where most people are relocating from. But we do get calls all the time from people all across the country. We simply have more people who want to move to Bend than we have houses built for them. So that's driving prices up. All right, this next one's kind of both. Geographic isolation and location. Now, this is the last topic that I want to touch on, and thank you so much for following along with us. This one's really interesting and notable. The geographic isolation of Bend is, in my opinion, both a pro and a con. Pro, because we aren't next to any major metropolitan city. We don't have the problems that many of the major cities do. Crime is low, schools are safe, and for the most part, great. You are ridiculously close to the mountains and the forests. And even with all that said, you're really only a couple hours drive to the coast. We've got a great airport, an airport that will basically get you to almost any major West Coast city pretty easily without a connection. But it's also a con because sometimes our isolation makes it difficult to get things or to get products over here. Anything that needs to be shipped has to be kind of driven over a mountain pass, and those can be kind of nasty in the winter. It's also a bit less technologically advanced, maybe. If you live in a big city and you order something on Amazon, you can literally watch it on your phone being driven to your house. We don't get that. And then sometimes it can come same day. Here, we don't get that. If you order something on Amazon, while Amazon is amazing, you don't exactly know when it's get here. You can't do that in Bend. It'll get here when it gets here. And sometimes it'll be late. There just sometimes aren't quite as many options as you would like. Yeah, we have a Target, but sometimes the shelves are a little sparse. If you're looking to try out or try on a particular product, you can't always find it in town. I've been looking for a particular pair of shoes for weeks. I guess my point is sometimes your options are limited. Now, there are always pros and cons to anywhere you choose to live. And if you've made it to the end of this video, you know that I don't really pull punches. I'm gonna tell you like it is. Is Bend one of the greatest places in the country to live? Yes. Is it perfect? No. I've traveled a bunch in my lifetime and I've seen a lot of communities and nothing really compares to Bend. By the way, if you check out that playlist right over there, we've got tons of information all about Bend. Now remember, if you or someone you know is thinking about buying or selling here in the area, my team and I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. Just simply go to cromrealestate.com. You can reach out to us there as well. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you over in the next video.